Welcome everybody to the February 18th meeting of the New York City Voter Assistance Advisory Committee. The agenda today is very short, and I'll kick off with the report from the chair. First of all, I would like to welcome Danielle Gerard to the committee. Danielle is an appointee of the Controller, Scott Springer, and we're very pleased to have you here. Danielle is a former commercial litigator, prisoner rights attorney, and a longtime Upper West Side political activist who's currently on staff at Food and Water Watch. You're welcome. Thank you. So just very quickly, some bullet points for activities over the past half month or so. So the Voter Assistance Advisory Committee sent a letter to the new Assembly Speaker, Heastie, regarding our suggestions for improving elections in New York. The letter is posted in our blog, but some of the key elements include recommendations for early voting, pre-registration of 16 and 17-year-olds, online voter registration, improving ballot design, and instant runoff voting. So I'm very pleased to have co-authored that with Amy. We're also working with DYCD to build stronger ties with youth and student media outlets. Thank you. We are working on plans for the first student voter registration day for May 20th of this year.
March.
Sorry, March. No, it's my reading error. I'll switch countries and people's names, and I switch my kids' names back and forth.
I easily could have put May. I had to look up the date and then I typed it off.
Youth Poet Laureate Crystal Valentine performed at the Martin Luther King Day celebration at the Apollo Theater, and the Daily News published an op-ed written by her. And very soon we'll be starting an analysis of our Get Out the Vote effort from November, now that the Board of Elections has completed and released an updated voter history file. That's my report. Amy?
I also have a very short report. I just need to give an update sort of what's going on in the campaign finance world. The January 15th, we had the second filing day of, believe it or not, the 2017 election cycle. We had 38 candidates filed disclosure statements with the board, and it was the first time ever that candidates were able to submit their documentation online with their disclosure statements all as one document. So that was a big change and made it a lot easier for the candidates, a lot easier for the staff who are reviewing those documents. Also, on the campaign finance front, on Tuesday, the citizens of Chicago will have an opportunity, as they're voting for their new mayor and incoming city council, to vote on a referendum whether or not the city of Chicago will have a public matching funds program that is very largely modeled on the New York City program. So we're looking forward to seeing the results of that referendum.
Fantastic. Perfect. So I think at this point we open this up to a public testimony, right? Do you have a report?
So I just have 4 areas that I'm going to talk on, but the first was our interagency partnership with the mayor's office covering the local law 29. That area has been led by Stuart Armstrong from our office, working together with me and together with the mayor's office. We have completed trainings where we've trained over about 93 people across 13 agencies. And those trainings have included areas of operations, public interaction, and promotions, and that's for how they're going to distribute voter registration form and encourage their constituents to register to vote when they come for city services. Student Voter Registration Day, as you mentioned, is going to be on March 20th. That is being led by our youth coordinator, Cheyenne Sapp, and working together with City Councilwoman Helen Rosenthal in her office. There are 12 confirmed City Council representatives, 18 confirmed schools, facilitators from Citizens Union to Dominicanos USA, Generations Citizens, New York Immigration Coalition, and hopefully that list will continue to grow. The curriculum was designed by NYC VAAC under the leadership of Cheyenne Sapp, and the training will also be facilitated by Cheyenne and maybe some others. my ask of the board members, if anyone would like to facilitate the workshop, if anyone is available on March 20th, you are free to come to the trainings. We will train you on how to be a facilitator, and we would match you with a school. So we are looking for facilitators, so think about that. And then there will be a press conference. Right now it's scheduled for March 19th, and that will be led by the city councilwoman. On April 9th, our partners at Lincoln Center, they have the Poet Link competitions that they do, and we are partnering with them again. So our year starts off with our partnership with Lincoln Center, with first theirs, and then our Youth Poet Laureate program. So you'll hear more about that. And then the last thing that I'll bring up is our second annual Advocacy Day, which is led in-house by Sabrina Juarez. And Sabrina and I are working together and with other members of the staff as well. We are meeting with Assemblyman Kavanaugh's office tomorrow. The projected date is April 22nd. We are again asking any board members if they would like to attend our Advocacy Day. We right now have 2 buses that will be going up. Last year we had 1 bus. This year we're going to a 2nd bus, and we are really focusing 1 bus on youth initiatives. So that's going to be Cheyenne's bus. And then we are now working on messaging and legislation, and we'll fill you in more.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
At this
Oh, and League of Women Voters is also working with us on Advocacy Day. Thank you very
And
much.
that's
And
very
Student Voter Registration Day.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Terrific. Is there any other business? Then let's open it up to public testimony.
Yes.
Okay.
You just say your name and your organization, and
Well, I'm just here by myself.
that's fine.
My name is Rob Reynolds.
Huh?
I live in Brooklyn. Until recently, I went to Brew College. I just graduated with my master's in tax.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And I'm here today just to talk about voting. Obviously, in November of this last year, our country saw the worst voter turnout since World War II, when a great deal of our population was at war. And it just seems like it's a horrible trend that just keeps getting worse and worse. And I think that's why we're here, is to discuss ways to improve that. And I think it's a very important thing to discuss. One of the best things of living in a country with 50 states is that you can see all these different laboratories of democracy, working themselves out. You can see how different policies work in different places. My mom lives in Oregon, and in November, when the nationwide voter turnout was 35%, the Oregon voter turnout was more than 70%. And that's not a fluke, that's not like a one-time thing. That's a consistent, every midterm election, like in the past several decades, it's at least 70%, if not higher, in midterm elections, and 80 to 85% are higher in presidential elections. And I think that we need to look at what these other states are doing to have very high voter turnout, and if that's our goal, we need to do what they do, or at least try, or at least aspects of what they do. One thing Oregon does, that's, I don't know if it's very unique to Oregon, but we don't do it here, is they do 100% mail-in ballots. Nobody goes in to vote somewhere. Everyone gets a ballot by mail, and I think that's a huge reason why most people vote, is because it's so easy. You have time to look it over. You have time to research the different things on the ballot. It's not just candidates, also ballot measures. So I think that's a really good idea. I think if New York did that, I think we would see our voter turnout increase significantly. Another thing is changing our city elections, and maybe even our state elections for governor, to presidential years. City elections on these random, 2013, 2017, who knows that there's an election on those times? Like, I consider myself very politically, interested. And I've always been politically interested, but several years after I moved here, I've been here for 7 years. I came from California originally, but several years after, my first city election was in 2013. I didn't even know about city politics before that, really. And so I think that's one thing we can work on is change that, and I think it can be done. I mean, you know, in Florida, for example, they changed the governor election from presidential years to midterm years. They did that like back in like 1960. And they did that because they didn't want too many people voting. Yeah, that's something we got to change. They got to change it back. But I think that's something that we can change in New York City and New York State. Also, I don't know if it's already legal, but I think we should make registering to vote easier. In other words, making it available online, so anyone can register to vote, like whenever, wherever, and just make it really easy. I think that would get more young people to vote, I think. So, and I mean, I know friends who, you know, didn't vote in this last election because they didn't register on time, you know. And I talked to them about it, you know, days before the election. They were like, "Oh man, I didn't register on time," but they would have voted, you know. So we need same day registration, early voting, all that stuff. That's great. Mail-in ballots, though, I think that's the best.
Yes.
Can I make a recommendation?
Yeah.
Could you join our trip to
Advocacy,
Albany?
yeah.
Because, you know, that's where all of this is happening. All the things you mentioned are legislative
Yeah.
in nature, and they're things that obviously we
Yeah.
hear, support many of them, and discussed a lot of them, but a lot of the pressure has to come in Albany
Yeah.
to change some of these things that are systemic, and you know, a great place to start is to join the group and go up there and talk to people.
Okay. Well, you know, it's an idea. I also think that it would help us if we got some you know, heavy hitters on our team. You know, like Mayor De Blasio. I think he would think this is an interesting idea. Several, you know, city council members. If we can get people to support this, you know, like not just, you know, ordinary people, but also elected officials, like people in our city council, then I think, you know, we would have a bigger voice. I think cities can pass resolutions recommending the state to do things. I think that would be one step. And for something as important as this, I think, you know, if they're going to pass a resolution on anything, it should be something like this. So.
Have we tried that? Has anybody from council?
I mean, they've had resolutions about different specific, you know, things. I mean, the city council's passed resolutions on, you know, rates and levels voting and on different kinds of issues related to this, but, you know, a whole concerted effort about improving the voting process, I don't think, Rachel, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes, now I'm on. No, I think that's right. I know the city council has, I believe, done a resolution on a unified June primary several times. That's something I would add to your list to discuss when you go up to Albany. I guess, am I starting my formal comments?
Why don't you introduce
Right?
yourself for the record
Sure.
first?
My name is Rachel Foss. I'm the Director of Public Policy at Citizens Union. And I don't have something more formal prepared because unfortunately your email went to my spam, but I found it, so I'm here, so that's good. But, you know, I think we're really happy with the city level work you're doing. We're very happy to be part of Student Voter Registration Day, and all your efforts on Local Law 29 for agency voter registration is great. We were really happy that, you know, there was a new law passed last year, and it's really ramping up this year. But, you know, as far as Albany issues, it sounds like the issues that you identified in your letter, early voting, pre-registration of 16 and 17-year-olds, online registration, ballot design, instant runoff voting, obviously those are things we support all of those items. Like I suggested, I would add the June primary and a unified date to your list. I believe it's something that you support.
Yes.
Given that every election year it's too late and 2016 will be too late for that change to happen, but the focus really has to be, if there's a time to push, it's the year, it's an off election year.
Yeah.
It, you know, whether that makes a difference is another story, but I think, I know the council, I think, is thinking about a resolution again on a June primary. We have a council representative over there. And, you know, I think showing the support there is for that is always helpful, you know, as a way to save money, but I know it's something that the Republicans oppose, but nonetheless, I think showing the wide support there is for the June primary would be very, very important.
Where is Citizens Union on expanded write-in ballot?
Absentee
Yeah, well,
or
you know. an
no
extent-
excuse absentee?
Yeah, no excuse.
Yeah, we support no excuse absentee ballots, certainly, constitutional amendment, it's a tougher lift, and same with, same-day registration is also a constitutional amendment. You know, one thing I would just flag as far as two of the issues on your list is that on ballot design, which is one of your items, we've heard the Assembly wants to pass the Voter-Friendly Ballot Act next week. So I think as far as targets of who you discuss it with, it would be, you know, the Senate would be the key,
Right.
key players there. They actually have their own proposal on ballot design, so I think it's a matter of getting the two to meet. You know, Assemblymember Kavanaugh has a bill, and then Senator Golden has a separate bill. So I think that's this group coming together and bringing those issues to, you know, to those, the folks in the Senate would be really helpful.
So see you taking a position on that?
The voter-friendly ballot act, we support it.
I'm interested in which version you.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are some issues with the Senate version right now. For example, they have it so that English is on one side of the ballot and then another language is on another side of the ballot. And from our conversations, many of the civil rights groups oppose that because it allows someone to track a particular, you know, ethnic group's voting patterns, and that's not a good idea, obviously. So I think there are some issues to be worked out that are significant between the two versions, but if there is willingness, I think, you know, it's a good, again, because it's an off-election year, it's a good year to work on that bill. And on early voting, something to be aware of too is that the Election Commissioners Association has come out opposed to the Sheldon Silver, or former Speaker Sheldon Silver version of the bill. I'm not sure where it will end up with our new Speaker of the Assembly, but that has been the main proposal on early voting, and the Election Commissioners Association opposes it. But I think if there's a discussion about how to implement early voting in a way that makes sense, I think the New York City perspective is important, but keeping in mind that there are so many other counties who have very different issues when it comes to early voting. Some of the staff we talked with there have there's 4 staff for the entire county for the Board of Elections. So, you know, something to keep in mind, and we'd be very happy to be a part of kind of thinking through how to present some of these issues, given that, you know, particularly early voting and ballot design we've been pretty engaged in and interested in. So, and the last thing I would say too, building off of the first speaker, is that something we are working on with a team of City College graduate students is a report looking at specific policies in other states and really trying to hone in, you know, what policies are the most effective at increasing voter turnout. There's a lot of policies that we support to ease barriers, but where is the proven link between reducing a barrier and actually increasing turnout, since that's the ultimate goal? And when we have that report ready, we'd love to share it with you. So. And it's, you know, a group of graduate students who are younger and very engaged in issues of civic engagement of youth and whatnot. So
Well, maybe
we'd be very happy to share.
Do a presentation.
To you? Yeah? No, I can see if they'd be interested.
Or invite them to come with us wherever this would be.
That's good point. So anyway, just a few things I wanted to flag and mention.
I have a question. Rachel, could you tell us what's the opposition from the commissioners of the Board of Elections regarding early voting? Is it a logistics issue? What's their concern?
I think it's largely logistics, knowing that the way the speaker's bill was drafted was, had certain minimums for the number of sites, and they felt it might be too burdensome for some of the counties, particularly those that have 4 staff members. We actually attended the Election Commissioners Association meeting and tried to talk with the local commissioners to understand the exact opposition, and Herkimer County is one of the counties with 4 staff. It goes into the Adirondacks. It's the longest county in the state, and you know, they even talking about solutions like having early voting only at county office buildings, for example, in the main Board of Elections office. They feel like it wouldn't be accessible enough to people who might have to drive 2-3 hours. So it's a matter of making it flexible enough that they feel they can implement it in a way that's realistic.
Or extending, I mean, the absentee program in such a way that it allows people who, I mean, right now, it's only if you're not gonna be the county or the 5 boroughs
Right.
of the city that you can vote absentee, to then expand that into, you know, you can vote, you can submit any time within 30 days of an election. That way, especially the disabled, seniors, and others would have more time, and students or anyone else have more time to go vote.
And I think there is some willingness to talk about specific policies, but I know that, I brought up the election commissioners only because many of the, I think, they're often deferred to in terms of the opinion of whether it's feasible, and they see the current draft as not feasible, so I think it's an important thing to keep in mind as, you know, this group goes up to lobby, is that it's the concept of early voting, and it's learning about how to make it work. It's not necessarily a particular bill, or, you know, it's the concept of it that's important. And learning from them too, you know, so if you're targeting particular Republican senators who are, represent some of the upstate counties, learning from them what they're hearing the opposition is, if there is any. And some of it is partisan, I'm not saying that that's an element of it too, but I think there are a lot of logistical questions about it.
Well, I would just add that we've invited Rachel also to be part of our smaller roundtable as we continue the discussions about legislation and how we want to position ourselves and how we're going to train those who are coming with us. And she's agreed.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I just have a question. You said that the same-day registration idea would take a constitutional amendment. What does it take to amend the Constitution in New York?
Oh, it's a cumbersome process. It takes the legislation has to be passed by 2 consecutive legislatures. So each legislature is elected for 2 sessions. So they'd have to pass an amendment in that first 2-year session and then again in the second 2-year session. So it's a somewhat cumbersome process.
And it has to pass just by majority
Yes.
And then it
And
also
then-
has to go before the
yes,
people
exactly.
on the ballot.
Yep.
after the second time
Yeah.
it passed, and then that just a majority again of the people.
Yes,
Yeah.
and one would hope that voters would be
Right.
happy about that.
The
so.
state senators are elected for 2-year terms or 4-year terms?
2 year.
2-year, okay.
Right, so New York, both the Assembly and the Senate are elected to 2-year terms.
Okay.
All at once, so it's not like in Washington where it's 1/3, 1/3.
Right. Got it. Okay.
That doesn't mean we shouldn't support that.
Yeah.
Exactly, that doesn't mean that, and that's the reason of why we're having Advocacy Day, because we know that things are very hard, but that's why it's also important that everyday New Yorkers are there. So it's not necessarily someone with an agenda, it's your everyday person who's taken time out of their schedule to show their representatives that this is something important to us. The same way housing, education, and all the other matters are important for us, it's our civic responsibility, and these matters are also, important to us, the election process.
Mm-hmm.
So, absolutely, it may be a hard, long haul, but it doesn't mean we don't start. It may be a brick wall, it doesn't mean that we don't chip away.
Mm-hmm. Does the governor have to sign the constitutional amendment?
No,
Okay.
But he has to sign the bill, doesn't he, when after it passes the
I don't
legislatures?
think so, actually.
No?
I might be wrong, but I don't think so.
Perfect. Well, is there any other testimony? Well, thank you, everybody. This brings our meeting to a close.
Thank you.